If your business can't run without you, you don't own a business yet. You own a job. There's so many business owners, they don't actually own their business. They own a job with a very demanding boss because every decision, every customer, every problem, every fire somehow ends up back on their desk. But what if your business could grow without depending on you for everything? So, guys, welcome back to the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast, where we explore how coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs can build authority, install systems, and create businesses that generate freedom as well as profit. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today I'm joined by Kenneth Kollasch. He's a certified business coach who helps small businesses move beyond that sort of chaotic mum and pup stage and build professional businesses designed to scale. Through his 12-month coaching program, the Small Business Flight Plan, Kenneth helps entrepreneurs install 6 proven business systems and more than 30 practical frameworks that create something every business owner wants more of. That's time, money, and freedom. So this episode is all about why systems, as opposed to hustle, are the real foundation of sustainable growth. And if you've ever felt like your business can't function without you, then this conversation is going to challenge the way you think about scaling. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Kenneth.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Karen. I'm super excited to hear our conversation and participate.
Fantastic. And let's start with a little bit of your backstory. Was there a particular moment where you realized that most small business owners didn't need to work harder, they just needed better systems?
Yeah, I grew up in the franchise models. For me, I spent most of my young career in a franchise that was 110 years old at the time. And so, yeah, they had a lot of things figured out. But one of the things that was not necessarily taught, it was more so caught, was this idea that our systems and processes and our frameworks are what make us successful, not just, oh, you stayed up all night, congratulations, or you grinded better or harder than the next person, congratulations. And so, yeah, burnout culture was something that they thankfully helped us avoid along the way and helped us really lean into the systems like you talked about.
Couldn't agree more. I think the problem is, or maybe I'm just talking about myself here. If any of you out there have ever felt like this, I think when I first started, it's definitely the fear of, sometimes it's the fear of success or the fear of failure, right? Because really, if they truly believed that their business was going to grow, they would set the systems in the beginning so that they're ready to scale. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say for some people, it's more cognitive and it's natural for them to want to organize and put all the crayons in the right color box and organize the files in their Google Drive. And so I think for some people, it comes more natural because it is their way of avoiding their fear of failure or avoiding their
Ah,
fear of success. But then for other people, which I experienced quite a bit in the dance world because it was a dance franchise, in the creative space, that is not the normal. And chaos is the typical mode of operation. So yeah, I think avoiding that is in a way, it is their safety blanket of having to avoid the fear of failure or even that fear of success that you talked about. So I think I've experienced it as like a 60-40. Most people tend to run on chaos before they run on organization, but there's those few and far between like me that tend to procrastinate because of our organizational desires. And we're really just avoiding our fear of putting ourselves out there.
yeah. But again, been there. It's funny what that you mentioned, people just getting, I used to call it, I'm just busy being busy, really. Like you said, working, it's like a badge of honor. I've been putting in 14 hours a day. It's like, why? You didn't
Yeah.
really need to do it. But I get it. When we first start out, we're trying to wear all the hats and we're trying to do everything. But actually, hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? Life is so much easier if you can install the systems in the place which frees you up to be more creative, frees you up so that you can have time. Now, You talk about installing 6 business systems. Tell us, what are those 6 systems and why are they so critical to sustainable growth?
Yes, the 6 systems are equivalent to what I would consider the small business flight plan. And we a lot of times use an airplane analogy. And the first thing that we normally address is the leadership in their company, the leadership suite. And think of that like the cockpit. So if the plane is comfy and the cabin pressure is great and the seats are spacious and you're not hearing babies cry every 13 seconds, the trip could be going 100% fantastic, have enough fuel, the wings never fall off, the engines are running. But if you end up in the wrong destination, you're still pissed at the end. If I booked a flight to Dallas and we end up in Frankfurt, I'm not happy. So the leadership of the business is equivalent to the cockpit. If we put in the wrong coordinates, the directions, if we basically aren't going in the right direction, then everyone's upset and we obviously don't have a great business. The second part of the airplane that we talk about is their marketing. And if nobody knows about you, hears about you, then it doesn't really matter how great your services, your product, how great the seats in the cabin are, how many premium drinks or food items that you serve throughout the trip. If nobody knows about you, no one's on the plane, then the flight was all for nothing. So the marketing aspect you have to get right in order to succeed, of course, as a business. And the third part of the plane we talk about is their sales. I think of the marketing and the sales like the two engines. If we don't have thrust, it's hard to get off the ground. So they have to know about us, and then we have to be able to steward their knowing to actually turning into trust and commitment. And so the sales process is obviously a big part of the systems that we install. And then we, of course, evaluate their actual offering and the way that they manage their teams. So when it comes to the offer that they have, that they're presenting to their audience, it has to actually be worth it. In other words, again, if my audience wants to go to Dallas, but I only offer something that goes to Atlanta, it doesn't really matter how amazing the offer is or how amazing the audience and the passengers would be. It's just the wrong offer. And so a lot of companies, they lean on offers that they've had for sometimes years, but that are outdated or not really optimized for the current market and the audience that's out there. And then, of course, the way that they manage their teams and the cash flow in their business, those are the last 2 systems that we install. So that way, not only can they be productive as the owner, but they can duplicate that productivity and that ROI to their staff members and to the way that they actually maybe even make investments to get to the point where they do their business and they run their business because they enjoy it, but not necessarily because they need the cash flow from it. And it's a whole business system. It's very intense, but the results that I guarantee are that we double their revenue, their footprint, or their business's valuation in 24 months. So it's a good system.
Amazing. So you're really sort of helping them with possibly an exit strategy as well.
Yeah, I see a lot of small business owners that are there and they've been running their business for a couple of decades and they're ready to either pass it on to their kids or sell it to a key employee or just in general run away. Just get out, get their retirement that they've worked for within their business equity and right off into the sunset.
And what do you see as the most common one? Marketing and sales, yeah. And it's what I have found is so many, depending on what type of business, but a lot of coaches and consultants that I deal with, they just want to coach, right? They don't
Mhm.
want to do the sales. They don't necessarily want to do the marketing, but not everybody understands the sales journey. Is that something that you find quite a bit? That's quite a major one. Look, if somebody listening could only improve one system in their business this month, which one would create the biggest impact?
Oh, it's marketing by far. And it's the reason why you look at Fortune companies, obviously not small business, but you look at Fortune companies and most of the CEOs or the C suite people, whether they're in sales, operations, the actual executive role, they often came through the marketing funnel because at the end of the day, every business would love to have one problem. And if you could create this one problem, you would be the happiest entrepreneur ever. And it's the problem of you have more demand than you have the ability to supply for. If I have
Mhm.
so many people that want my thing that I literally can't service it until I scale, that is the best problem to have. And if you can find a way, AKA master marketing, and constantly generate that problem for your business, you don't really have bad days. Yes, there maybe you've got some other things to figure out, but that's the first problem that you want to intentionally generate and then actually master in your business journey. That would by far create a better ROI than, not that the rest of the systems aren't important, but that would be the first system to master for sure.
And do you find that is the biggest issue people have? And what do you think? Social media is just, it seems to be just so full of noise. So, how do people actually stand out in that
Yeah.
noise?
Oh my gosh. To your point, it is the first thing that I think reveals to the business owner their own imposter syndrome, like you had mentioned earlier, their own fear of success or failure. Because the idea behind marketing is that you're going to put out something vulnerably to the market, and the market is going to give you an honest response of, hey, we liked that, or we didn't like that, or I didn't even hear about you. And for somebody that is a new business owner, especially, or like you had mentioned, coaches and consultants, it's something I dealt with where I knew I was a visionary and an operator. I always had ideas and I always could deliver on those ideas once I was in front of somebody in one on one or group setting. But to actually expose myself on social media and in a way feel like I was pretending to be the expert or pretending to, I hope this business flight plan works. It's in a way the beginning stages of all of that. And even if you're experienced in business, a lot of times if you've not overcome that as a business owner, it's really tough to invest into marketing in the way that actually creates that collateral benefit, as I would call it, of having too much supply or too much demand
Mhm.
and not enough ability to actually supply it. So yeah, I think the marketing, what wins today is authenticity. Authenticity is the trend right now. I have great cameras. I own a videography company, but a lot of times we actually find with clients creating more of the, I call it on a walk type of content where it's
Yeah.
just point for first person perspective. Oh, let's just walk through, what does it look like a day in the life of Karen hosting this amazing podcast? And it's like the behind the scenes, and basically garnering trust through authenticity is the trend right now in marketing. And so you don't have to invest in crazy expensive video equipment, or you don't have to invest in going to Iceland or Scotland to create some crazy amazing video reel to promote your
Yeah.
business. It's really a lot. The entry level into marketing to being successful is actually a way lower barrier to entry than it ever used to be before.
But again, going back to that point is it's they are in their own way. Because look, I've got to say, I don't know, I do not have the time for any of that. This is why I love podcasting, whether you're a guest or the host, is because then that's it. I do not do any other marketing. And it's interesting because people are always looking to go viral. And
Mm.
I say to people, look, get rid of these vanity metrics. They're irrelevant. Now, I don't necessarily, we post a lot, we post the reels, it's not that I'm not looking for the likes and comments because those types of posts don't tend to get that much. But we can see in the stats that the podcast is growing, right? Or
Yep.
we're not far off a million downloads. We've been working at this for a very long time. So yes, and that is a vanity metric, but it wasn't the only thing that was driving it. But what it is, okay, so this stuff that we're doing on social media, just because they're not liking, commenting, they're still watching. And the beauty with a
Hmm.
podcast is they will take the time in the privacy of their own home or car or shower or whatever to actually listen. Whereas sometimes when they actually take an action on a post, they can see other people doing this. It's more private. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Have you found the same? I know you guest a lot. Have you found that guesting on podcast has been a good way for you to get your message out there?
Yeah, so I'll actually give you a story from two sides of this. So I was a podcast host back in the day when podcasts were garnering mainstream attention, and I had recently with another couple of people had started this local nonprofit, and it was a nonprofit ministry for young adults. And we were like, "Oh, let's jump on, let's see if a podcast would work." And one of the most amazing things happened, and it was that we were thinking, oh, we're going to get the attention of all these young people and they're going to listen to our podcast and whatnot. What we ended up finding out is our audience was people like pastors or other charity people that wanted more youth or young blood in their organizations. And so from the hosting perspective, we actually clarified our marketing avatar through our podcast experience that we were hosting, not just with our guests, but also with just the audience that was coming. And so we didn't waste a lot of time guessing who really wanted to connect with
Ah,
us or partner with us or what were our highest ROI relationships that we needed to develop. In a way, the podcast helped us naturally and organically and aka super low budget, aka almost no budget, figure that out. And what I coach people today now is I tell people podcasting is one of the most essential things if you're going to get direct access to your audience. Because for me as a guest, obviously, I love to meet hosts that have either access to my own target audience or obviously serve my audience at a larger scale that I don't necessarily have access to. What I tell business owners all the time as a guest is it's amazing because I'm meeting people that are the people I want to serve all day, every day anyway, by, oh, let's jump on a they're on their podcast or invite them onto mine. And so it's a great way to just, if marketing if the name of the game in marketing is to get into a relationship with your ideal client, and the podcast host or the audience already has that, it's an amazing win-win partnership where we're all benefiting from from the conversation. And those that love to do relational style marketing, podcasting has got to be like one of the top things. As you already mentioned, it's something you've leaned into for a long time.
oh,
It's one of my favorite ways to do marketing nowadays.
love that. Do you want to do a VSL on my website for that? But it's going back to that authentic. This isn't, we can't script a conversation here. We're just having a conversation. And you're right, it's the relationships. And I think a lot of people miss out on that. Is that it's the relationships you build, the opportunities
Mhm.
that have come my way through the podcast, whether it's from a guest or whether I've been a guest. And so it's come from the host. Priceless,
Yeah.
absolutely priceless. And some of the times things that I just never even expected. And I think people miss that. They see it as I'm just creating content, which of course you are. But the idea that you're creating content at the same time as building a relationship, because you're not building a relationship putting a post on Facebook. Whereas
Right.
we're filming this today, and today is what, Tuesday, where are we, the 15th? This is going out
Yeah.
next week. So this is the today as it's going out is the 21st. You've creating the content, but it's could be the relationship that comes from us two. You might know somebody that wants my services. I might know somebody that I can send to you, and that is what gets missed. It's
Yes.
the host could open the door to something, the guest could open the door to something, and you never know until you have that conversation. Love that. Now,
Yes.
a lot of business owners need to deal with some, how should we say, maybe some internal limiting beliefs that are holding them back. What is the biggest belief that you see that keeps founders trapped in the I'll just do it myself mentality?
Yeah, the biggest lie that I run into, and this is by the way, if somebody has a business under a million, I don't even, to me, a founder is anybody under 150, 200,000, like a startup. But even businesses that are in the small business category still in that mom and pop stage, they struggle with one consistent, and I don't know, I've run into somebody I've worked with as a client that didn't have this, but they have the I can do it all myself or I am the only one that can do it syndrome. And I've been there too, where it's so true. If I hire somebody that does something 60% or 70% as well as I can, and when I onboard them, they maybe 2 or 3 months later, they're only at 90 or 95% effectiveness. I've in the past still been upset, or vice versa. I will refuse to hire them to begin with. So I think a lot of times founders and startup owners, especially, they struggle with this idea of not just with employees and staff, but even with people like myself or their spouse, people that have input into their ideas or their thoughts about, I'm going to do this instead with my marketing, or I'm going to I'm going to start this YouTube channel. I'm going to start a podcast. Having a lifestyle as a business owner where you have literally no accountability to somebody else, that you give authority to actually tell you, hey, that's a bad idea. Or I think, have you actually done the hard numbers on it? Or are you just starting this based on feeling? Oh, I feel like it's going to be a great thing. But have you actually done any real market research on it? Or is there any data that supports that thought? Or is it just intuition and instinct? So I think the biggest thing that hangs people up is they don't have somebody like a coach or some type of authority in their life and accountability to actually push back and even push them up, I would say, with their ideas to make their ideas
Mm.
better by adding more perspective.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes it I've always thought, even having a coach, it's not always because they know more than you. So sometimes just verbalizing your ideas. So when you're a solopreneur, you can have all these ideas in your head. And until you verbalize it to somebody else, you fix it right away. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Because
$100%.
you've just got it out there rather than it staying here. And to have somebody just to bounce ideas around, whether it is someone you employ, whether it is a coach, whatever, you need that. And you're so
Hmm.
right. I think so many business owners, or I'm talking about more solopreneurs, when it's just them, we can get so emotionally involved in our baby, if you like, that we just can't see the wood through the trees. And like you say, you need somebody to come in and go, duh, why don't you just
Yes.
do that? I've always had a issue with overcomplicating things in the past, definitely. And it took me a while to, okay, bring things in, let's simplify. And funny enough, when you simplify, that's when things happen. But I get it, it's difficult in the beginning. And yes, there's lots of internal beliefs holding people back, but also there's an identity shift that has
Hmm.
to happen before someone stops thinking like the technician, if you like, and
Yeah.
starts thinking like a CEO. How do you help with that? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think the transition is, to your point, it's not an overnight thing. I don't dangle something in front of them and snap my fingers and say, and a CEO, and boom,
Yeah,
they come out of the hat like the rabbit. So it doesn't happen like that. But you're right. There's a great book that this was totally transformational for me in regards to what we're talking about. I read it a long time ago. I don't get any royalties or anything from it. It's a free resource for all of you guys. It's not free, but the recommendation's free. It's Liz Waisman wrote a book called Rookie Smarts a long time ago, at least in my eyes, a long time ago. And it changed my life in regards to my humility as a business owner. Because I grew up as a third generation entrepreneur. I had a chip on my shoulder for sure. I had no value for anybody that knew less than me or was less experienced than me or didn't have my growing up. And this book helped essentially confront me on the value that is derived from people that we would consider rookies, or they don't know my business. They've never worked in the HVAC industry, or they've never had a hair salon, and having an outside perspective, it started to chip away and actually install some humility into my perspective. And to go from the technician or the all I have my hand in every cookie jar of my business to a CEO, aka a chief executive, like an officer, a commanding officer in your business that isn't actually pulling on all the riggings and always taking the cookies out of the oven and doing it all yourself, to somebody that actually is leading the business. That transition requires a lot of humility and trust and intentional capacity for building relationships with people you're going to delegate to. And
Mm.
I think humility for me was the first starting place. And maybe that's just because of my background, but I've seen it with a lot of people that are going from that technician phase to, I'm either going to be selling this business to somebody else, or I'm hiring my first team manager or my first project manager in my business, or my first executive assistant or virtual assistant, whatever it is. It requires some humility to actually transfer trust and responsibility to somebody else, knowing that there's going to be a time period where they're going to be less effective than you. But if you hired or you're scaling the right way, you're going from being 100% effective yourself to having somebody else who's 150% as effective as you are, aka they're more effective than you if you
Yeah.
give them the ramp to actually get there. So I think humility was the biggest thing for me. And it's what I've seen with a lot of people that make that transition is there's a lot of humility that is required, and humility is not exactly
Mhm.
grown on trees. So it does take some internal work and time.
You've got to, at the end of the day, you're never going to get to any big goal by yourself. Nobody does it. I know we've got tools and we've got systems and we've got AI. You can have AI agents. But at the end of the day, especially if you're looking to have an exit strategy, you've got to have a team. So I'm sure that could be that is the toughest thing. But like you say, is trusting others and being very specific about what's expected of them. I know that I'll hold my hand up. I'm not a very good manager, right? So I had to learn the hard way to be very specific about what I was asking them to do. You've still got to train them. You can't just
Yeah.
expect them to be your, why are you not psychic? This is what I wanted. Um, and for me, that was the most difficult thing because that's, I suppose, coming back to you're helping people with the leadership skills. Because, yeah, that was definitely not my forte at all. But if you want to scale, yeah, man, you've got to get over it, right? You've got to get
Yeah.
over it. And I
And
know, yeah, sorry, go on.
here's a system. I'll throw this in here is when you're, whether it's hiring or whether you're figuring out your critical actions or core values or key characteristics you want to put on job descriptions to attract the right people, whatever you're doing to actually install the right system, when you're creating it, use this funnel because this is the natural funnel that humans are going to go through when it comes to adopting your culture or the job or the actual ins and outs, the daily do's and don'ts of their job description. Always go what, how, and then why. In other
Mm,
words, you have to tell them what to do very specifically. And if they're not doing it right, it's either rebellion or it was missing. I either didn't put it in the SOP or they don't want to do it. And then, of course, that's an easy, okay, bye. But then after they get past the what, the right people easily and quickly get past the what. And then you can start training them on, okay, how did I, as the business owner, create that? How did I think about that? What was my mindset and why I put this SOP together? Like, how is it actually duplicating how I created something? So that way they can obviously not just know what to do, but they can know, okay, how did this actually come to
mm,
be? And then eventually they get to the place where they need to understand why. And that's when they start getting into near promotion, where, okay, now they're understanding why this business runs the way that it does and not just how it works and not just what they should do, but they start thinking like the business owner in that role. And that's the progression that we all go through naturally. But a lot of times as owners, they should know why we are doing this. So they should know how I came up with this. So they should know what to do. And
no,
they a lot of times will pursue it backwards, and it a lot of times ruins the right employee. And it dismantles the relationship because it just went in the wrong order, not necessarily because the person or the thing they were doing was incorrect. So just food for
yeah.
thought.
A great tip there because yes, they need the specifics, but also when you understand why you're doing some of that helps phenomenally. Now, I know a lot of maybe the smaller business owners may think they're too small for systems. So, what would you say to someone who believes they should wait until they're bigger?
Yeah, I think first of all, congratulations. You are officially a solopreneur. If you're thinking along those lines, then we've all been there when it's just been what I call my three favorite employees, me, myself, and I. So when you're a solopreneur and you're doing your day to day X, Y, or Z things, what I want you to think about is I'll give you an experience that I had. When I first started my business coaching agency, naturally, I can make decisions and pivot at any moment in time. So I had one idea on Monday and I would work on it, install it, put it on my website. And then by next Tuesday, I had another idea. So I would change it and install it. And inevitably, I had somebody who was a really great friend of mine. Her name's Courtney. She basically looked at me and said, "Hey, I noticed you changed your website 3 times this month. What are you doing?" And what I realized is I was running my business based on my instinct and emotion and my feeling. And I didn't have a system to actually essentially guardrail me from ruining my own progress and constantly hitting the restart button. And so what I would say is if you feel like you're too small for systems, of course we all know it's not true, but systems are what I consider my first hire. So most people will think, oh, I need another guy to run a job site, or I need a virtual assistant, or I should create this AI system, whatever, this AI agent. And I always tell people your systems are your first employees. So they're the first things that, and I actually treat them as if they're my boss. Hey, I'm hiring a fractional CEO, and this fractional CEO is going to tell me how often I can and can't change things. I have to at least run an ad campaign for 30 days before I just flip everything on its head, or I have to I have to do this one offer this long to test the market. I'm not going to give myself an out. And so your systems act in a way, guardrails that you need more when you're smaller than you ever will need when you're bigger. The things that you do when you're small are only going to get larger in scale, more pronounced in your business. So getting it right early on is the easiest, and it is
Oh,
the richest work that you could possibly do probably in the beginning, is creating the right foundation for you to actually eventually scale, of course. But it will make your life literally 100 times easier to hire your first employee called systems and let them
I,
be your boss.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny, isn't it? I think I use my chat to call me out on things. And you're so right. When I first started, I don't think we give things enough time. Like you say, I can remember changing things, and now I'm going to help people with their sales training, and now I'm going to help them with their social media, and now I'm going to help them do this and do that. And it's like, whoa, it was the moment. And I argued it with my coach. I did. I argued it. And because I wanted my podcast network and I wanted to grow that and I wanted to help people have their own podcast. And I kept being told, no, stick to the guesting side of it. And I argued it. And then the moment I accepted that actually that might be the better option, things changed. And then life gets
Yeah.
easy because all of a sudden you've got time because you're not trying to do this for some and that for other people. And I don't know whether that's me. I'm not saying every podcaster has ADHD, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs we can have these traits. And this is why we have all these great ideas and we want to do everything. I always wanted to do everything. But how do you convince someone then that systems create growth and rather than actually slowing it down? Because do you feel that people can back away because but if they're not techie, they've got to learn all this stuff, but they don't realize that put in the work now to make everything easier later?
Yeah, it's a real, I don't want to say a fear, but everything you're saying is 100% true in terms of how people feel in that stage and what their natural pushback is, because it was my pushback too, just like you. And one of the things that we do in the beginning is we address this dissonance of most startups or most entrepreneurs where they have this way of going about business that is all instinct driven and feeling driven, and I feel like the marketing is going really well, or I feel like I feel like the way I wake up in the morning and I always do this and this, and I kind of just get to my day and I don't really have a system to it. I just kind of do what I know I need to do that day. And it's all instinct driven. And not only is that not duplicatable, but it's always often not as effective as they think. So the first thing that I do is I'll call it coercion. But the first thing that I do is I run a full diagnostic on their entire business and their personal life if they're open to it. And the reason I do that is because we need to actually face some real data. So that way the data is really our jury. It's our judge and jury to tell us, like, okay, we may feel like we're being really productive every day because you've got a lot going on in your brain, but what actually gets done in your hands and feet? What actually gets done? And when we measure that, oftentimes it's not as rosy as we probably paint in our own mind. We didn't get
Yep.
as much done that week or even the right things done that week as we thought we did. And so I think the first thing for me that has helped clients not hate me and help them actually move forward out of this paradigm that says instinct is better than systems has always been running some type of pretty thorough diagnostic on their business workflow, sometimes even their personal life workflow, and measuring those. It's like a light bulb moment goes off when they realize, wow, this is 6 months of wait, this isn't at all how I felt about it. I totally felt that things were going great and I was being real productive. And yeah, they realize, oh, I think my instinct is letting me down. And I really want this end result of I want to hit my first 100K, or I want to have my first 100,000 downloads on my new podcast, or whatever it is. They want the ROI enough to trust me for at least 30, 60, 90 days to install a few systems. So we go one little rabbit or one little breadcrumb at a time.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
first starting place is the diagnostic for sure.
Yeah. Audit and then look at the data and and you're right, take the emotion out of it. We're too emotionally involved. Get rid of, and that's why they need somebody like you to get rid of that emotion. And yeah, look at the numbers, don't lie. The
Yep.
numbers do not lie. So
Yep.
here we often talk about building authority through podcast guesting. How important is it that a business, well, they need the systems in place to even support the opportunities that greater visibility creates?
Yeah, I think for me, I want to specifically address the podcast guesting system. Like I said, when I hosted a podcast, the system that we participated in was low budget. It was low effort to start, and it yielded a lot more than we had put in for sure. Now, on the guesting side, there is, I think, a little bit more intentionality, a little bit more budget that I've put into it. But to your point, the systems that you put into your business are designed to give you back the ROI or the rewards that you originally started your business for, which is always more time, more money, and more freedom. No one ever starts a business to just escape their W-2 job or just escape their whatever employment or career that they have. They do it to escape to a promised land. And the promised land has something to do with more time, money, or freedom. And so the systems allow you to actually create more time, more money, more freedom to invest in things like podcasting that whether you're a host or a guest, the podcasting is going to be like gasoline on a fire that's already started. And so do I think you could start something, and have I seen people start their business straight using podcast guesting or hosting to start up a business really well? Yeah, definitely. I can't say enough about how everything you as a listener have heard Karen talk about on all the episodes on this show, you could implement before other systems for sure, because
Mhm.
podcasting is that powerful. But
Well, but you need the systems in place, right? You need the systems
right.
to then share the reels, to create the posts, because again, rather than just relying on the host to do it, and this is where a lot of guests miss out, they're missing out so much
Mm,
they didn't have their system. And I love what you just said there. And I want to pause on that because this is something I do think every entrepreneur needs to hear, because we do spend so much time talking about getting more leads, more visibility, more clients. But if your business doesn't have the systems to support that growth,
yeah.
more success simply just it's just going to create more stress. Whereas so
Yeah.
visibility creates the opportunity, and the systems, well, it helps with the fulfillment, right? They create
Yeah.
capacity. And that's, I think, the difference between owning a business that depends on you and building one that can grow, can continue growing because of you. So I
Yeah.
know there's lots of people out there that are probably now think, okay, maybe I've been banging my head against a brick wall thinking I can do it all myself and I'm ready to scale. So how do they get in touch with you? What would be the next logical step?
Yeah, I made it super easy. You just go to kennethcoaches.com/free. And I've actually got a whole free resource suite that is designed to generate your first or your next 100,000 in your business. So kennethcoaches.com/free. My socials are on there. It's the one-stop shop for either the 100K free resource market or just booking a call with me and getting in touch. Yeah, that's kennethcoaches.com is the one-stop shop.
Brilliant. And yeah, and I've had a look, listeners. There are a ton of free resources. So get to it.
Come on.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Look, Kenneth has been talking about building systems that create freedom. And the same is true when it comes to building your authority. You don't need to create more content every day. You need a system that consistently builds trust with the right people, just as Kenneth spoke about earlier. So that is exactly why I created my free Story Bank GPT. because I'm not a natural storyteller at all, right? This is all something that you learn. And so I wanted to make it easy for people, because I think there are people out there that struggle with this. And it is your stories that resonate. When it resonates with the right people, that is what that can help drive people into your world. So it'll help you uncover and organize the stories that do communicate your expertise. They build credibility, position you as the obvious choice when you do appear, whether it's on podcasts, creating content, whether you're speaking on stage, right? And you can access that completely free at podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. And then if you feel ready to build a complete authority system, my 4-part mini course, the Podcast Profits Funnel, is available. It's not free. It's $5. Inside, I'll show you how to use podcast guesting, strategic storytelling, and a simple client journey to turn that visibility into predictable business growth, because businesses don't scale through hustle, as we said right at the beginning. They scale through systems. And the same is true for your authority. So everything's waiting for you at podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. And don't worry if you're driving or walking the dog. Kenneth's link will be in the show notes. So resort back to those. And it's been fun. Kenneth, thank you for taking your time out today to speak with us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, so good. What a great show.
Thank you. See you next week, listeners. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're